So even with the insane amount of new design tools that are coming out on, it seems like a daily basis, to help us create things better and faster and more efficiently, it's still not enough, right? There's still too much routine, and designers are still spending way too much of their time just doing production work. And so I would argue we need to automate and simplify our work processes even more. And I see 4 key areas where AI could really redefine how designers create products and experiences. The first is creating the initial structure of digital platforms. The second is assisting new techniques of communicating and visualizing. The third is personalizing the technologies we use. And the fourth is integrating new product experiences. Before I get too far, I think this is a really helpful diagram to show. And it basically breaks down the relationships of technologies that everyone here is talking about today. AI, as the name suggests, injects intelligence into a machine so that machine can act somewhat autonomously to achieve a goal, right? And intelligence, it's a pretty ambiguous word. And as a result, it's been this sort of moving target throughout history. Machine learning, it's a subset of AI, right? It's based on the concept of learning and adapting from data rather than being explicitly coded. And then finally, deep learning is a type of machine learning that uses algorithms inspired by the structure of the brain called artificial neural networks. So if we summarize the 3, AI could be akin to, say, chess. Learning could be your machine learning could be your intelligent spam filter. And deep learning would be image recognition that can recognize your friends and families in your photos, right? So with that, let's start with creating. I'm sure we all know the popular platform Squarespace. It makes it insanely easy for anyone to create these gorgeous websites by simply choosing from a predefined template or layout. This is something that you have to pay a designer a few years ago a pretty solid chunk of cash to do for you. And these out-of-the-box platforms are now starting to evolve from being passive to being generative. And there's a few companies that are offering AI-based design services. And one example is LogoJoy. And LogoJoy uses a generative tool to produce thousands of customized logos for you to choose from, all with the help of any human hand, right? So basically you enter your name of your company, you pick some of your favorite colors, and you hit go. And in a few milliseconds, the machine spits out a bunch of initial designs. And then you can favorite the ones you like best, and then hit more logos. And you repeat this until you're either bored or you have your perfect logo. You can even put your design choices in mockups so you can see it in real-life context. And I thought this was kind of funny. In their pricing breakdown, they explicitly call out, I don't know if you can see this very well, everything a designer would send to you, such as brand guidelines and social media assets and professional watermark, font names, color palettes, high-resolution PNGs. The irony here, of course, is the only human designer that was involved was the one that designed the initial framework, right, that this AI platform spends spitting out tens of thousands of these designs every single day. Another company called Monotate recently launched a platform which enables companies to provide these hyper-personalized pieces of content to each of its customers in real time. And so say you're sitting down at home with your spouse, and you're both looking at the same website on separate devices. You could get completely different experiences with Monotate's system. Its platform basically looks at your age, your demographic, your location, and in real time, it changes the content that's served up to you. And this technology plays on this fundamental truth of design with AI, which is machines tend to excel where humans tend to fail, right? Creating new content day in and day out, and constantly analyzing new customer behavior is a really difficult thing to do for humans, right? But this is something machines are really good at. And as machines become more capable, we're going to start to see the role of the designer shift from creator to curator. For example, if designers can come in and define the logic of some of the initial content and some of the initial imagery and typography, they can get the help of machines to come in and create thousands of design iterations in a very short period of time. I used to work as an architect, and I've seen the architecture industry using generative design for many years. You may be familiar with architects like Zaha Hadid, right, who have become world-renowned because of their ability to control the logic of software. And they can create thousands of these design variations on things based on like views from a building or pedestrian movement or sun exposure, say. And as these design methods become more and more widely available, all types of industries, or designers from all types of industries, are going to be able to push into new territories. Designers' creativity is really going to be fundamentally amplified because of this. And I think this quote by Carrie Jacobs, the founder of Dwell magazine, starts to say a lot about our future. Crumpled, folded, wow buildings will become increasingly commonplace, but they'll no longer be designed by the stars. The only true stars will be the guys who design the parametric software. So moving on to number 2 on our list, assisting. Companies like Facebook are starting to use image recognition to identify people and objects and even emotions from photos and automatically generate audible descriptions for the visually impaired. And what this technology also opens up is the potential to keyword search through photos. And if you think about it, we're missing out on the ability to find a lot of content in images or movies or songs. And in the future, when every piece of every content that has ever been created is searchable, that's going to open up a lot of new avenues to find and enjoy content. You may have seen this feature that Google recently rolled out called Smart Reply. Google found that over 25% of email replies consisted of 20 words or less. And so they created a way to give some suggestions for short replies that you can do with one tap on a mobile device. And the system currently processes hundreds of millions of messages every day using its deep learning technologies. One of my colleagues at Method, Josh Newman, put together this diagram to help to start to understand how machine learning can assist humans. And basically, machine learning can be divided up into 3 categories: detection, prediction, and generation. Detection is concerned with taking an input and trying to match it with a pre-existing set of labels. One example is Google's suggested sharing feature, which can detect your friends in your photos and suggest sharing those photos with them. Prediction works by taking an input and predicting a likely outcome. An example of this is Spotify, predicting the likelihood that you'll listen to a song based on your past listening behavior. Generation, as the name suggests, it generates content based on the data that's fed to it. An example of this is Monotate, right? The platform I mentioned a few minutes ago, which generates content that's unique to you in real time. Moving on to number 3, personalizing. Imagine if your doctor could use an algorithm to individually target messages to you to, say, increase your chances that you'll take up prescription every day. Or imagine your Fitbit knew exactly what to say to you right at the right moment to motivate you to get up off your couch and go for a jog. A startup called Persado is basically doing exactly this. They're providing hyper-personalized messages to its users. The company created a system that analyzes each individual user. It knows what you've clicked on before. It knows what emotional phrases are most likely to catch your attention. And then it takes all of that data and it generates messages that are more likely to get you to engage. Persado categorizes millions of phrases into 5 key emotions: pride, anticipation, fear, joy, and trust. And each of these is further subdivided into 3 more emotional subclasses. And so, say, within fear, they have guilt, urgency, and anxiety. And within joy, they have excitement, fascination, and gratification. And each one of these can be used to create messages targeted at individual users. And so by combining their trained algorithm with existing data that they have on their users, they know how users have communicated with or engaged with the communications in the past. Persado builds these profiles which identifies which emotions convince users most effectively. So with all the data, with all the algorithms that companies like Persado are using, the role of the designer is shifting into new territories, like really understanding what it means to work with data. Let's say you want to design a running app, okay? What are you going to need to be successful? Well, I guess one of the major components might be you might need people's health data, right? So you're going to need to know things like, what kind of health data are you using? Where is that data coming from? How recently has that data been collected? These are typical details that designers may leave to the data scientists on the team. But these are details that the designers really need to consider and understand. And the bottom line is, if you design something that utilizes algorithms, the way algorithms respond to a specific data set is a design effect, right? Whether you intend it or not. Over the last few decades, we've seen a kind of shift in how designers have to engage with software and data. A few decades ago, everything was on hardware servers, right? Software had to be manually loaded every time a change was made. Next came cloud computing. Data was stored on the cloud. Software as a service, or SaaS, became the new industry standard. And cloud computing enabled us to collect vast amounts of data, and as a result, data analytics became really critical. And we had to learn how to sort through these huge data sets and visualize that data in new and exciting ways. And finally, here we are, 2017. Machine learning is now being used to train data in order to make it a little more useful, a little more palatable to us humans. And designers have this new challenge, which is to understand what data exactly we want to extrapolate and what data we want to use. And I love this New Yorker cartoon because it hints at a potentially very real problem. Now that police and even courts have begun using algorithms to assist them with their work, it's not always clear how these systems are coming to their conclusions. And this becomes especially worrying when something goes wrong or when somebody's sentenced or arrested. When an algorithm returns a result that we don't necessarily or it doesn't necessarily make sense, we need to start to understand why. And it's up to us designers to be at the table with the data scientists and engineers and decision makers, the main folks who are dealing with this data, to make sure that we're using reliable data and creating outcomes that we all understand. This leads us to our fourth area, where machines can assist designers, and that's integrating new product experiences. My company Method recently looked into how specifically the hotel and hospitality industry is evolving as AI and connected devices start to integrate to make guest experiences much more enjoyable. And using this lens, I'm going to talk about some important considerations that designers should make while designing these new integrated experiences. The use of AI is certainly not new for the travel and hospitality industry. Companies like Expedia and Kayak and TripAdvisor have been using many sort of different levels of this technology to improve the experiences that they offer. And despite the varied activity in this space, AI is really still in this exploratory phase, and it's largely an untested customer value proposition. And this is especially true for the in-hotel moment of the guest journey. So one of the first considerations that designers need to define in these experiences is the context of use. At what touch point should technology be integrated into the guest experience at all? Should it be when guests arrive? Should it be at the reception? Should it be in the elevators, in the bar, in the gym, in the guest rooms, right? If it is used in the guest room, there's a variety of possibilities, from voice interfaces to smart TVs. Elsewhere, it might be preferable to make use of guests' personal mobile devices, right? Where chatbots are increasingly being used. My buddy Joe is going to take us into the next exploration of chatbots up here next. You may have heard of the Japanese hotel called the Hena Hotel, where their entire floor staff was recently replaced by robots. Apparently, the talking dinosaur on the right can speak to guests in 30 different languages. The hotel owner was quoted as saying, check-in time is much shorter with robots because no guests are complaining or asking questions. But I mean, really, like, who would have the gall to complain to a talking velociraptor, right? I'm not sure what drove the decision to replace humans with robots, but I will say that interacting with a talking velociraptor is definitely a clever way to drive new customer acquisition. So major props to those guys. This may all sound funny, but this brings up a really good question. And it's whether technology should be used to amplify services or merely automate services. And the ability to understand the pros and cons of each is really key when designing these types of experiences. Types of interactions are another big consideration for designers. Should it be screen-based? Should it be voice and gesture-based? Maybe a hybrid of the two. Voice interaction can be kind of challenging because people aren't quite as familiar with dealing with this type of screenless technology yet. And it's likely that in the interim, voice systems with blended interfaces are going to be much more widely used, where a conversation is augmented with a screen. And the Amazon Show is a pretty good example of this model. Designers also need to consider things like privacy, data ownership, user authentication. The Wynn Hotel in Vegas recently announced it's installing an Amazon Echo into each one of its 5,000 hotel rooms. And this may sound really cool, but it also brings up some pretty critical questions, like what happens to that data collected by Echo after the guest leaves, right? We were just talking about this in the previous talk. What happens if guests don't want Amazon listening to their every move? How does user authentication work if different people are using this device every day? These are new questions that I don't think designers have really had to deal with before, but it makes it a pretty exciting time to be working in this industry. We're also starting to see the use of full-service robots in the hospitality sector. These new machine friends can help us with tasks that are a bit more tedious for both the guests and the staff to deal with. Requests like calling for an iron or ordering more champagne. And the Crown Plaza Hotel in San Jose started using what's called the Saviok robot, which can take care of some of the more mundane tasks, like delivering drinks or placing a request in a language that's not spoken by the human staff. As technology is increasingly integrated into the guest experience, it's going to be up to us designers to start to choreograph all of the disparate systems to work together with the end goal of really providing a heightened sense of delight for guests. And that's something that machines cannot do on their own. And as machine learning and as AI really quickly infiltrate our lives, products not only have the ability to learn, they can predict human behavior in a way that better serves us. And whether it's the heating system that learns your comfort preferences, whether it's the refrigerator that can reorder food for you, whether it's the robots that can help you find your way. Technology is obviously the core enabler in all of these experiences, but there's going to be an increasing demand to design the frameworks that run all of these integrated experiences. And guess who that's going to come from? It's going to come from us, human designers. Remember all these skills that I mentioned earlier, which we have to maintain today? It's a lot of them. I imagine the highlighted areas as having potential for AI intervention just in the next few years alone. And eventually all of these are going to be AI assisted, which it's going to be an absolute boon to how we create new products and new experiences. And I want to end with one final anecdote. This is an image called the Mechanical Turk. It's from 1770, and it was an automated chess machine consisting of a wooden dummy that was controlled by gears and flywheels that moved chess pieces around on a board. And the device was used for 50 years, and it beat some of the smartest minds at that time, including Benjamin Franklin. However, the year 1820, 50 years after it had been in use, it was discovered as a hoax. People discovered that there was a chess master hiding inside the Turk the entire time, controlling everything. Everyone had thought that this machine was brilliant, but really it had worked because it was supported by a human being, right? The chess master filled the gap of cleverness that the machine couldn't handle. Algorithms need humans to design them. Algorithms need humans to feed them with clean data and step in during times of failure. And this is happening a lot right now with various bots, various automated services. For example, the majority of responses coming from Facebook's automated assistant M were actually delivered by humans. And that's going to continue to be the case as these systems and algorithms continuously learn. And for platforms to be successful, they need to find this sort of new blue, this new shade of blue, right, where humans and algorithms come together. Wow. Humans are innately curious, right? We know how to combine old ideas and new ideas in really inventive ways. Machines, on the other hand, they don't have curiosity. They're really great at being precise. They're really great at doing repetitive actions. But machines need humans to boost their creativity. And so as long as we remain curious, whether we're designers, whether we're engineers, human beings in general, machines are going to help us create increasingly more complex, more interesting work and help bring us into the next era of design. Thank you very much.